Greetings, everyone, and welcome to our third installment of our analysis of the Gate in the Way to Life verse. We have worked through number 1 and number 2. Now we are going to work through number 3. As a reminder, this is our anchor verse, or about which all of our context verses are orbiting. The three big issues are that we have two paths, and at the end of these paths are destruction and life. Everyone is on one of these paths. The other issue is that we have many ending in destruction and only a few leading to life. Therefore, we want to make sure we understand what it takes to get to life. And 3, we know that we have to get through the obstacles, the narrow gate, and the difficult way in order to end up at life. Our first context verse for today is in Matthew 7:21 through 23. We have broken the verse up into A, B, C, and D to highlight the big issues. Point A, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter into the kingdom of heaven. It stands to reason that these people are individuals who have gone through the narrow gate. Some may pick a bone with me on that point and say that these are, quote, false converts. That is, people who, in the context of our discussion today, have thought that they went through the narrow gate but went through the wide gate. That particular discussion is not very interesting in terms of the fact that it's academic. The point is, there are people that think they are going into heaven and they are not. So again, we have people that believe in Jesus. We have people who realize and acknowledge that he is Lord, but at the same time, they are not entering into heaven. And point B, Jesus contrasts those who are and those who are not getting into heaven. Jesus highlights the fact that those who do the will of his Father in heaven, those are the ones who enter. So, and this is the third time that Jesus has told us in the context of the entire gate in the way discourse. We see in the anchor verse that Jesus mentions the difficult way. The difficult way in Hebrew Holy Scripture is in reference to our moral conduct. The good fruit in the discussion just after that, as far as the good and the bad fruit, is a metaphor for our good conduct. And here, Jesus, instead of using a metaphor, he just plainly says we have to be doing the will of the Father in heaven in order to get in. Part C, Jesus says that many will not make it. So many is going back to our anchor verse where we see the word many again. Many end up in destruction, and this is why. Many will believe that they are working for the Lord. They will believe in the Lord. They will acknowledge that he is Lord, but they will not be doing the right things, and therefore they will not make it. Notice also that we have the term prophecy. Prophecy is referring back to the false prophets. And we have these false prophets who come in the name of the Lord, believing the Lord, acknowledging the Lord, casting out demons or whatnot. They have a powerful ministry, but they will not make it. Remember, the false prophets come in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are something vastly different. And point D, Jesus tells us why they will not get in, and it's the flip side of point B. He says that they are log breakers. So again, we find that the spacious way, the bad fruit, being a log breaker, is all the same thing and ends in the same ending, that is destruction. In the next verse of context around the anchor verses, we find a very similar story. We have a group of two people, and these people are the same on a few accounts, and they are different on a few accounts. Where they are similar, we have two people that are listening to Jesus. That implies that they have gone through the narrow gate. They are also building a house, and they are also a victim of a storm. So those are the three issues where they overlap, but that is where the story begins to diverge on both accounts. One does what Jesus says, and the other does not. The one who does, his house stands. The one who does not, well, we read in the very bottom, the house collapses and it is utterly destroyed. So that word destroyed is found again, or that concept is found again in the anchor verse about many find destruction. And this is why Jesus is telling us what it takes to find destruction, and what it takes is listening to Jesus but not doing what he says. As a summary of the entire anchor verse and the surrounding context verses, we find that Jesus is giving us multiple versions of the same story. He says it this way, he says it that way, he tells us through parables. He tells us plainly. He tells us what the story is. He tells us what it takes to get to life, and he tells us what it takes to get to be destroyed. Taking that thought a little further, we find that Jesus is giving us a warning, and a very, very fair warning. He's telling us that the vast majority of people will believe that it is okay to do evil, that it is okay to ignore the will of the Father, that it is okay to be a lawbreaker, it is okay to bear bad fruit, it is okay to go down the spacious way and still find your way into heaven and still find your way into life. Jesus is clearly saying that is not the case. What shall we say then, brothers and sisters? We have to get through the narrow gate. We're not going to get into the nuts and bolts of that at this moment, but we will look at this from the standpoint of the spirit of the anchor verse and the context. To get through the narrow gate, we have to admit our shortcomings. That is to say that we have not borne the fruit that we should have. We have not done the will of the Father. And we have to say we are willing and want to walk in the difficult way. That is, we want to find out what the Father's will is, and we want to listen to Jesus, and we want to do it. Staying on the difficult way, that is the follow-through of the commitment. What makes the difficult way difficult is that we have to do what Jesus says. Doing what Jesus says is quite contrary to our fallen nature, and that is why it is difficult. And everybody has to determine who is going to be our directive. Who is going to tell us what to do? Who is going to tell us what is right? Who is going to tell us what is wrong? Now, some people want to anoint their favorite Hollywood star as far as what they need to be doing and what they should not do. Some people want to anoint the talking heads on the news to tell us what to do or not what to do. And some people want to find their peers on social media to determine what is right and wrong. At this point, we have a choice. We can either choose the world as to what the world tells us what to do, or we can choose Jesus. Those are two diametrically opposed sources of knowledge of what is right and what is wrong. If you found this video helpful, I would appreciate it if you would hit the like button. I would also be encouraged if you would write a positive comment or shared the video with your friends and family. Beyond that, if you find yourself listening to this video and you reconsider your life and you come to the conclusion that, lo and behold, you have not stayed on the difficult road, you have not borne good fruit, you have not sought out what the will of the Father is, and you are just doing your own thing, it behooves you to go back, do a U-turn, find your way to the narrow gate, and then make the commitment to stay on the difficult way and ask God for his help in doing that. Until next time.